أجمعين ومن صار على نهجهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. If we look around us, and if we look at our sort of everyday lives, you'll notice that there are seasons for everything. And if you look to particularly, let's say, the merchants, business people, then of course we know that they have certain seasons throughout the year. One of those seasons is, well, just about now. We're already past mid-November, and by the time December rolls around, and particularly after the second week of December, in this part of the world, of course, it's money-making time. And that's why you're going to find, for example, that shopping malls will be open till very late hours. Perhaps right now, it's only for a certain number of days in the week that they open till late. But very shortly, they're going to open till late every single day of the week. And the reason is clear, because they want to maximize their profits. They know that this is the time of year to make money. This is when people will be spending. It's a season. It's the season for the people to spend, and of course for the merchants, it's the season to make money. If you were to find a storekeeper, for example, who decided he's going to shut down during that time of year, or he doesn't open at the same times as the others open, of course you look at that person and you'll think that this person is strange. I mean, can they really afford to not take advantage of that season? You wouldn't consider that to be an intelligent business person. We seem to understand these things very well because they're tangible. We can see them in dollars and cents. But you know, even in our religious lives, if you will, there are seasons. Of course, every day of the year is a day of worship. We have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout our lives. But the reality is that there are certain times during the year which are considered for us to be seasons of worship. Meaning that worshipping during them has greater value. Rewards for worship during those seasons are greater. And we know, for example, that the best month of the year is the month of Ramadan. We know, for example, the best day of the week is the day of Jumu'ah. And these are certain times which have particular benefits to them. So if we look to the day of Jumu'ah, the Friday, well, we know that it's the best day of the week. And from amongst the virtues of that day is that there is a period of time on that day during which if a person were to supplicate, to ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah Jalla wa ala would most certainly grant that person their wishes. And Ramadan, passed us by not too long ago. And we learned of the many benefits and virtues of Ramadan, and particularly the last 10 nights of Ramadan, etc. Now it is time for us to remind ourselves of the fact that yet another season is quickly approaching. That season is one which apparently many of us Muslims neglect every year. The season about which I am speaking are the first 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah. Before I continue, one may say, okay, so what makes these times better than others? How come Ramadan is the best month of the year? How come the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are better? How come the Jum'ah is the best day of the week? And so on and so forth. Well, we simply have to remember this. وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ. And your Lord creates that which He wishes, and He chooses, He appoints, and He selects. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things. He Jalla wa ala created time as well. He created the year, He created the month, He created the days, He created the weeks, He created everything Jalla sha'nu. So He subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses from His creation certain things and prefers them over others. This goes in everything. If you look at human beings, Allah Jalla wa ala created all of humankind. But from amongst the human beings, He chose the prophets and He selected them to be the best of all people. And from amongst them, He selected the messengers. And from amongst the messengers, He selected 5, Nuh and Ibrahim and Musa and Isa and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And from amongst those messengers, He chose the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wa sallam and declared him to be the best of all His creation. In any event. So we don't question that. It's the choice that Allah Jalla wa Ala has made. He created these things. He places blessings in that which He wishes. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. So Allah Jalla wa Ala, it is up to Him. He chooses where to place the blessings, and He chooses what to prefer and what not to prefer. Let's come back to these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Believe it or not, these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are the best days without exception of the entire year. أفضل الأيام أفضل أيام الدنيا, as the Prophet ﷺ said, أفضل أيام الدنيا أيام العشر. The best days of this world are the 10 days, and by that he means the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And yet in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أَعْظَمُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ وَلَا أَحَبَّ إِلَيْهِ الْعَمَلُ فِيهِنَّ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَيَّامِ الْعَشْرِ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. There are no greater days in the sight of Allah, and no days on which righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah than during these days, that is, the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And yet we find in another hadith, and all of these hadith are authentic, the Prophet ﷺ was asked, when he mentioned that there are no days in which good deeds or righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah than during these 10 days, he said, not even jihad for the sake of Allah, not even going out to fight on the battlefield for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, not even that, unless it was an individual who left willing to give up his soul, in other words, willing to give his life, and he left also willing to give up all of his wealth for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he never returned with any of that. So the only one who will be better is the one who goes out on the battlefield with his life, with all his belongings, and he loses all of that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sacrifices all of that for His sake. That is what is better. But other than that, all good deeds done during these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than good deeds done at any other time during the year. Yes, these are the best 10 days of the entire year. They are greater than the last 10 days of Ramadan. Sheikh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah alayhi rahmatullah was asked, which days are better, the last 10 days of Ramadan or the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah? He rahimahullah ta'ala, of course understanding the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, said, as for the best days, then they are the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. As for the superiority of the night, then they are the last 10 nights of the month of Ramadan. So these days are valuable. We mentioned just a while ago about the merchant. You can imagine if you were a business person, if you were a storekeeper, you're not going to wait until that last week or those last 2 weeks before Christmas come and then start preparing. You're going to be preparing ahead of time. You're going to have a plan. You're going to have a schedule. Who's going to be in at what time, because you have certain hours. What is going to be the busiest of times? You're going to look at all of these things. Now these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are coming. Have we set out a plan for ourselves? How are we going to spend those 10 days? It's important that we do so. And inshallah ta'ala, over the next couple of days, we'll discuss some of the deeds that are recommended for us during these days. And perhaps we'll try to dig up some abandoned sunan that we can revive bi'idhnillahi ta'ala during these days as well. So first, a reminder to myself and the rest of you of the value and the virtues and merits of these days which are coming up. The best days of the year. They are most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal, or deeds done during them are more beloved to Allah Jalla wa Ala than those deeds done at other times of the year. Which obviously means that the rewards you will attain for those very same deeds are greater during these 10 days. So this is the first matter. The second matter, as I said, is we need to plan. We need to set a schedule for ourselves for these 10 days. How are we going to spend them? Yes, we have to break our routine. Yes, we have to change our lives a little bit. Okay? We can't expect to just, allow these days to go by like any other days of the year, because they are not like any other days of the year. They are superior to all the other days. So let's make certain that we are prepared for them. Let's make certain that we set some sort of a schedule for ourselves. And as I said, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, over the next few days, we'll discuss some of the things that we can do during these days. When exactly are these days going to begin? We don't know exactly, but wallahu a'lam, it's anticipated or expected that perhaps the first day of Dhul Hijjah will be on the 18th, which is Wednesday. Allahu a'lam. We'll let you know for certain. We'll be checking tomorrow, of course, and once the news reaches, immediately we'll let everybody know, so we can start from day one to benefit from these days. I beg of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us a proper understanding of how valuable these days are. Then I ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq, the strength and the ability to profit and benefit from these days. هذا والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.